Have you ever felt like you are living on autopilot, repeating routines, accumulating tasks, surrounded by expectations, but deep down with a sense of emptiness? As if something essential were missing, as if, even fulfilling all your obligations, you were still far from a full, meaningful life. Know that this feeling is more common than you might imagine. Many people live like this, busy but unfulfilled, productive but not at peace, connected to the world but disconnected from themselves. And perhaps that's why you are here, reading these words. Not by chance, but because deep down you know you need something more. That you need to do something that, in fact, can change your life forever. And yes, that is possible. It's not about changing the world, nor about seeking magic formulas. It's about changing the way you relate to the world, to others, and, above all, to yourself. This is the starting point. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy, teaches exactly that our true freedom and happiness do not depend on external circumstances, but on how we choose to react to them. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the most important representatives of Stoicism, wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Pause for a moment and reflect on that. How much energy do you spend trying to control the uncontrollable? How much anxiety arises from trying to change things that simply aren't within your reach? The first change, perhaps the most difficult, is this, accepting that we don't have control over everything. And that's okay. This is not resignation. It is wisdom. When you stop fighting against what you cannot control, you save energy for what really matters. Your attitude, your choices, your values. That's where life begins to change. Imagine someone who spends their entire life trying to please others, adapting to external expectations, fearing criticism, seeking validation. That person is always at the mercy of forces they don't control, always vulnerable, always anxious. Now, imagine someone who consciously decides to live according to clear principles, who chooses integrity over approval, who seeks to be better, not just to appear better. That person, even when facing adversity, remains firm, serene, at peace with themselves. This is the essence of Stoicism. Cultivating virtue as the greatest good, developing emotional resilience, finding meaning in self-mastery. And it is not an abstract, distant concept. It is something deeply practical that can and should be applied in your life today. Change begins when you decide to take responsibility for your life. Not for the things that happen, but for how you react to them. Epictetus, another great Stoic, said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." Reflect on the situations that are currently troubling you. Financial problems? Family conflicts? Professional concerns? Now ask yourself, how much of this is truly under your control? And how much depends on external factors? Stoicism proposes that we focus on what we can control. Our thoughts, our attitudes, our values. The rest, we must accept with serenity. This is the first great step to change your life forever. Stop wasting energy trying to change the world and start transforming yourself. And in this process, you will inevitably begin to discover who you really are. Self-knowledge is not an end in itself, but a continuous path, a journey of discoveries, adjustments, and growth. And here is an essential point. This change does not happen overnight. It requires consistency, discipline, patience. The Stoics deeply valued the idea of gradual progress. Marcus Aurelius wrote down his reflections daily, not because he was already perfect, but because he knew he needed to remind himself every day of the kind of person he wanted to be. You don't need to be perfect, nor should you expect that of yourself. But you can, yes, strive to be a little better each day. Start with small actions. When you feel anger, take a deep breath and choose not to react impulsively. When you feel anxious, ask yourself, is this within my control? When you are criticized, reflect. Is there something to learn, or is it just someone else's opinion? These small gestures, repeated daily, create habits. And habits shape character. We often think that to change life we need great upheavals, radical changes. But, in fact, the greatest transformations are silent, discreet, internal. It is when you decide, for example, that you will no longer victimize yourself, that you will no longer blame others, that you will no longer let fear paralyze you. It is when you choose to live with more intentionality, with more presence, with more authenticity. And, little by little, you realize that your life begins to gain more lightness, more clarity, more meaning. Stoicism does not promise a life without problems. On the contrary, it recognizes that suffering is part of existence. But it teaches that we can face adversities with courage, with wisdom, with serenity. That, indeed, is a profound change. And look, no one is saying it's easy. Living according to these principles requires effort, requires stepping out of your comfort zone, requires courage. But the reward is incomparable. A freer, more integral, more meaningful life. You don't need to change who you are. You do need to change the way you live, how you think, how you choose to act in the face of situations. And that is fully within your reach. You may be going through a difficult moment right now. You may be feeling lost, demotivated, exhausted. I understand. And I want to tell you, you are not alone. Many people at some point in life go through existential crises, deep questioning, this intense search for meaning. And, in fact, this search is a sign of health, of vitality, that there is within you a force that wants to grow, evolve, flourish. Do not stifle this force. Feed it with good thoughts, with good readings, with deep reflections, with practices that bring you closer to who you want to be. Stoicism can be a precious guide on this path. Not as a set of dogmas, but as a practical, living, accessible philosophy. When you begin to internalize Stoic principles, you realize that, no matter how much the world around you remains the same, you are different. And, by changing internally, you also change the way you relate to everything and everyone. That is liberating. And it is only the beginning. Now, take a deep breath, absorb these words, and prepare to go even deeper on this journey. In the next part, we will explore how to apply, in practice, Stoic teachings in your daily life, and how to cultivate habits that will sustain this change you so deeply desire. Now that you have already begun to realize the importance of taking control of your own life, not in the sense of controlling everything, but of choosing how to react to each situation, let's move forward to the practical application of these teachings. Because, indeed, knowing is not enough. It is necessary to act. And here, once again, Stoicism offers us a safe path. The Stoics valued practice far more than discourse. For them, it was useless to master theory if, in the face of adversity, one could not maintain calm, clarity, and virtue. And this applies to you, to me, to all of us. Think about how many times you have already read self-help books, attended motivational lectures, listened to advice, but, at the moment of challenge, you acted impulsively with anger, fear, or despair. It's natural. Do not blame yourself for that. The human mind has this automatic tendency to seek protection, to react. But precisely for that reason, it is so important to develop awareness and mental discipline. The first practical step I invite you to take is that of self-observation. From now on, start observing your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, not in a critical or punitive way, but with curiosity and openness. When you get irritated, ask yourself, why am I irritated? Is this under my control? What is the best attitude I can take now? When you feel fear, question, is this fear real or just a projection of my mind? What can I do about it? This simple exercise of pausing and reflecting before acting completely transforms the way you deal with life. And it is not a new or modern method. Since ancient times, Stoic philosophers have practiced this, calling it examination of conscience. Seneca, for example, wrote every night about how he had behaved during the day, acknowledging his mistakes and reinforcing his successes. Imagine the power of this practice. Daily reviewing your actions, identifying patterns, correcting directions. Do not expect immediate results. Like any habit, this practice requires time, consistency, and patience. But I can assure you, it changes everything. Little by little, you will realize that you are no longer a hostage to your emotions, that you can maintain serenity even in the face of provocations, that you know how to more wisely choose the battles worth fighting. And this does not mean becoming cold or indifferent, but, on the contrary, living with more presence, more lucidity, more purpose. Another fundamental Stoic teaching that you can start applying today is that of the dichotomy of control. Basically, it means dividing everything that happens into two categories: things you can control, things you cannot control, and acting based on that distinction. For example, you cannot control the country's economy, other people's behavior, emerging diseases, or even traffic on the way to work. But you can control how you react to these situations. You can choose whether to get stressed or stay calm, whether to complain or seek solutions. It may seem too simple, but it is precisely this simplicity that makes Stoicism so powerful. The vast majority of our suffering comes from the futile effort to try to control the uncontrollable. When you accept that, life becomes lighter. Imagine, for example, that you planned an important day, a meeting, a trip, an appointment, and suddenly it rains, traffic gets stuck, the internet fails. You can despair, get irritated, blame others, or you can accept, adjust your plans, and move forward with serenity. Of course, the second option requires emotional maturity, requires practice. But it is absolutely possible. And more importantly, it is liberating, because you stop being a plaything of circumstances and become the author of your own life. Another essential point in this journey of change is the cultivation of virtue. For the Stoics, virtue is the supreme good, the only thing truly under our control and capable of bringing us true happiness. Virtue here, not in a moralistic or religious sense, but as human excellence. Living according to reason, with integrity, with justice, with courage, with wisdom. Think. How many times have you regretted acting impulsively, unjustly, or dishonestly? And, on the other hand, how did you feel when, even in the face of difficulties, you managed to maintain dignity, honesty, coherence with your values? These moments show us that true satisfaction does not lie in what we achieve or possess, but in who we become. And this is something you can start building now with small daily choices. When you have the chance to be honest or omit the truth, choose honesty. When you can help someone or ignore them, choose to help. When you are tempted to react with aggression, choose kindness. These choices, repeated day after day, build a strong, integral, admirable character. And there is no need to wait for a big moment to start. Start now with what you have where you are. Remember, life is made up of small choices that, together, form a path. And speaking of paths, another Stoic concept that can transform your life is amor fati, which means love of fate. It sounds strange, doesn't it? How can you love fate when it brings us losses, frustrations, pains? But look, resisting what has already happened or what we cannot change only generates more suffering. Loving fate means choosing to accept life as it is, with all its beauties and imperfections. It is recognizing that even adversities can teach us, strengthen us, shape us. Nietzsche, a German philosopher who was also inspired by Stoicism, said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, not wanting anything to be different, not in the future, not in the past, not for all eternity." When you adopt this posture, you stop living in the anguish of, what if, or why me? And you begin to live in the present with acceptance, with surrender, with serenity. And that, believe me, changes everything. Because many of our pains do not come from what we experience, but from the resistance we put up against what we experience. When you let go, when you accept, when you flow, life becomes lighter, more fluid, more authentic. And that does not mean settling, ceasing to seek improvements, or resigning passively. On the contrary, it means acting with wisdom, with clarity, with focus on what truly matters. As Epictetus said, "Do not ask that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will be serene." And that is not conforming, it is liberating. How many times have you been paralyzed, suffering, trying to change something that simply did not depend on you? Now, imagine how your life would be if, instead, you focused your energy on what you can truly transform, your thoughts, your choices, your way of acting. That is the invitation of Stoicism. And it is also the invitation I extend to you now. Begin to look at your life from this new perspective. Identify what is within your control. Accept what is not. Cultivate virtues. Practice self-observation. Develop emotional resilience. And little by little, you will realize that that feeling of emptiness, of lack of meaning, of disconnection, will give way to a fuller presence, to a life more aligned with who you really are. And, more importantly, with who you want to be. This journey is not linear. There will be difficult days, setbacks, doubts. But don't give up. As Seneca said, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. And that's what we're doing here together, learning to live. In the next part, we will delve even deeper into this reflection, exploring how to maintain consistency on this path, and how Stoicism can help you build a life with more purpose, clarity, and inner peace. We've come this far together. You already understand that changing your life does not mean changing everything around you, but transforming how you perceive and react to situations. You have already learned the importance of self-observation, focusing on what is within your control, cultivating virtue, and serenely accepting what life brings. Now, I want to invite you to go even further, to build, day by day, a life with more purpose, clarity, and inner peace, sustained by habits and practices that consolidate this change forever. And yes, this is a lifelong process. Stoicism teaches us that excellence is not a destination, but a continuous journey. So don't expect perfection. Expect, yes, evolution. To evolve is to choose daily to be a little better than yesterday. It is to have the humility to recognize flaws and the determination to correct them. It is to commit to a path, even knowing that there will be obstacles. And this commitment starts, above all, with yourself. One of the most powerful practices you can adopt is morning reflection and evening review. When you wake up, before diving into the rush of the day, stop for a few minutes and ask yourself, what are the challenges I will likely face today? How can I act with wisdom and virtue in the face of them? What values do I want to honor in my actions today? This moment of mental preparation is essential so that you are not automatically driven by impulses, negative emotions, or old conditioning. You start the day with clarity of purpose, with direction, with awareness. And, at the end of the day, before going to sleep, set aside a few more minutes to review your actions. Where did I act in accordance with my values? Where could I have acted better? What did I learn today about myself and about life? This simple practice creates a continuous cycle of learning and evolution. And look, it's not about judging or punishing yourself, but about knowing yourself, adjusting the course, staying on the path. The Stoics did this every day. And not because they were weak or insecure, but because they knew that vigilance over oneself is the key to true freedom. Another fundamental point to sustaining this change is the cultivation of discipline. Discipline is often seen as something heavy, oppressive. But, in fact, it's the opposite. Discipline is freedom. When you choose discipline, you choose to be master of yourself, instead of being a slave to impulses, harmful habits, distractions. Think about how much time and energy you have already lost in life with procrastination, with excessive use of social media, with habits that add nothing to your evolution. Now, imagine how your life would be if, instead, you chose to use that time and energy to learn, to take care of your health, to strengthen your relationships, to develop your skills. That's exactly what discipline provides. The ability to direct your life where you want it, and not where chance or external pressures push you. And here, again, Stoicism is a valuable guide. For the Stoics, discipline was not just a matter of behavior, but of identity. Being a disciplined person means living according to your values with consistency, with integrity. And look, it's not about completely eliminating pleasures or living a life of deprivation, but about balancing, moderating, choosing wisely. As Seneca said, no pleasure is a good if it is followed by regret. How many times have you given in to momentary pleasures and then felt guilt, frustration, emptiness? Now, how many times, even feeling lazy or resistant, did you choose to do what you knew was right and, in the end, felt pride, satisfaction, peace? Discipline is this path of conscious choice, which builds, day by day, a life more aligned with who you want to be. And speaking of alignment, we cannot fail to talk about purpose. One of the greatest causes of suffering and feelings of emptiness today is the lack of a clear purpose. Many people live on autopilot, performing tasks, accumulating superficial achievements, but without a deeper meaning that gives cohesion to life. Stoicism invites us to seek that meaning, not in external things like status, money, or recognition, but in living consistently with our highest values. As Epictetus said, "Do you want to be invincible? Then don't fight against what's not within your power." Your purpose doesn't need to be grandiose in the eyes of the world. It can be simply to live with integrity, to help the people around you, to develop your skills, to leave a positive legacy, even a silent one. The important thing is that it is true for you, that it resonates with your essence, that it moves and inspires you. And when you find that purpose, everything changes. Difficulties cease to be insurmountable obstacles and become steps on your path of evolution. Suffering ceases to be something to avoid at all costs and becomes a teacher, an ally in the process of inner strengthening. And look, no one can define this purpose for you. It is born from your inner listening, from your reflections, from your experiences. So, allow yourself this dive within yourself. Allow yourself to question, what really matters to me? What kind of person do I want to be? What legacy do I want to leave? These questions have no easy or immediate answers, but they are fundamental to guide your life with more clarity and authenticity. And, in this process, remember to cultivate patience. We live in an impatient society that values quick results, instant solutions, immediate gratification. But building a meaningful life, based on Stoic principles, requires time, requires consistency, requires resilience. Like a tree that grows slowly but roots itself deeply, you also need to give time for this transformation to consolidate. And in moments of discouragement, of doubt, of relapse, remember, the important thing is not to fall, but to always get up. As Seneca said, "No wind is favorable to those who do not know where they are going." Define your direction, affirm your values, and move forward, one step at a time. And finally, I want to reinforce something that may seem obvious, but that we often forget. You are not alone on this journey. We all, at some point, go through crises, doubts, fears. We all seek, in some way, meaning, connection, peace. That's why it's so important to share, to learn from others, to inspire and be inspired. And that's why I want to now reinforce a very special invitation. If this content made sense to you, if it helped you reflect, if in some way it touched your heart, subscribe to our channel. That way, you won't miss any of the content we are preparing with so much care to keep inspiring you on this journey of self-knowledge and transformation. And more than that, share this video with that friend or family member who, needs these words right now. It may be that, for them, this is the beginning of a profound change, as it is for you. Also leave your comment, telling which insight impacted you the most, which reflection made the most sense to you. Your experience can inspire other people, can create connections, can help someone going through a difficult time. And together, we are creating a community of people committed to their own growth, to the pursuit of a more meaningful, more serene, more authentic life. Remember, you don't need to change everything at once. Start with a small step. Start with a decision. Start with a do this. Make the choice to know yourself more deeply. Make the choice to take responsibility for your life. Make the choice to cultivate virtue, discipline, resilience. And thus, little by little, you will be changing your life forever. After all, as Marcus Aurelius said, happiness depends on us. And now it depends on your choice. Thank you very much for being here, for walking to the end of this reflection. See you in the next content. And remember, subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you soon.